I'm here today with the one and only filmmaker, trans historian, and icon herself, Zackary Drucker.
Hey Rose, thank you so much for having me.
Of
It's a
course.
blessing to see your beautiful face always.
Always so good to see you. Your films often bring to light stories that have been very intentionally erased or just
Mm.
forgotten. And so I want to ask you, what draws you to uncover these hidden trans histories, and how do you approach telling them with care?
As a young person, I grew up in a sprawling Jewish family, 20th century immigrants. My great grandmother moved to New York in 1914, and English was her fifth language. And in the Jewish tradition, there's this ethical value of being a mensch, which means being a young person who helps out elders. And I aspired always to be a mensch. That was the most important thing as a child. So I had, a great grandmother. She lived to be 97, and her generation of cousins who are still alive and also in their 80s, 90s. Some of them lived to be 102. Um, I grew up with Holocaust survivors in my family. I grew up with um, lots of legends, and because I was in a culturally vacuous place, Syracuse, New York, there wasn't a ton going on. My imagination was really captured by these people who had lived many lives. They were like time travelers to me.
Mm.
And so when I moved to New York City, the day after I graduated high school at 18 years old, I sought out the legends in the queer community because they made me feel anchored. And Flawless Sabrina was one of my first friends in New York. She was in her 60s at the time. It was 2001. Um, she lived until 2017 and became really one of the most monumental people in my development. She introduced me to Hollywood Lawn and Alexis Delago and the Wicked Witches of the West when I moved to California. And um, in those early days in New York, I recall having a moment with Sylvia Rivera on the R train in the middle of the night and her girlfriend Julia. And I recall passing Les Feinberg um, outside a falafel shop in Union Square. And I felt so close to my heroes and so close to um, the ghosts who had fought for their rights in those places, have intergenerational relationships. It's the best stuff in life.
Wow, it gives
It's
me
the best stuff
chills.
in life. You just like learn so much, and we're here for a fleeting moment.
Mm.
The span of our lifetime is like that. And so we are called upon to pass wisdom forward as quickly and readily and as gracefully as we can. Our predecessors are speaking through us at this point because we're here. And having known so many of those legends, having felt so beholden to their integrity and to be carrying the torch. And I realized today, now it's me, you know, now it's you, Rose, now we have to tell these stories. It's up to us to keep them alive.
Wow. That's really powerful and really beautiful. Like it's our turn now.
Mm-hmm.
Like what
It
an
is.
honor and what a privilege, right? To get to share history, to get to share these stories, to get to be privy to them.
It's a great reminder just to know that like things are changing, things are never exactly the same. Things are both better, they're worse. they're different. They're different every time.
Yes, it is ever evolving and never ending.
Yeah.
Um, I guess in your point of view, why is reclaiming trans history so vital right now? I mean, I think it's, obvious to state, we are living in a time of censorship, erasure, and attacks. Um, but why, in your opinion, is that so important?
Basic survival is crucial. And next, scholarship, having roots, understanding this is not personal. This is not about me. Zackary, it's not about you, Rose. Like this is about a larger project of subjugation and domination in history that has always been used against women, always used against people who are colonized, always used against um, anyone with pigmented skin. And you know what I mean? It's like you just go down the line. Like we're a part of a social, cultural struggle, and it will take all of us doing this cultural work together, side by side, to push it forward. It's one of us can't do it singularly. It really is um, the strength in numbers. So, as opponents to our rights assert that we popped up 10 years ago, the only offset to that is to highlight examples from deep history to say, actually, that is not true. And so much of what the right perpetuates is false and flat out lies. And so I think we just have to start being more clear eyed about what it is and why they're doing it. They're trying to create an alternate reality.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, call
And
that
they may succeed in
out.
pockets, but I, yeah. Well, what's really critical in these moments is to have hope.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Our histories give me hope,
Yeah. And
it's so
hope is
empowering.
central to survival. We won't survive without
Could not agree more.
it.
Um,
Yeah. And
so I want to,
it's the harder one. Misery is much easier. Misery, self-pity. I mean, that is a comfortable hotel room that I could live in for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
oof.
The hope is like, no, you got to go outside. You got to get in the street. You got to be around people. You have to see the sunlight. You have to see nature. Like, you have to be a witness. You have to live.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's the harder choice sometimes indeed, but it is the right
And
one.
yes.
Or
Mm,
at least it's the one that I continue to choose every day.
yeah.
And your films also give me, hope and encouragement and strength. And so I want to ask you a few questions about some of your films in framing
Okay.
darkness, uh,
Hmm.
which I loved getting to see at the premiere. You give
Yeah.
voice, you give a voice to trans people whose lives were kind of reduced throughout, like in history, to clinical case files. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious how you navigate the tension between historical documentation and honoring lived experiences, because you had a lot of fun kind of play with form there in reenactments and reading these transcripts. So I'm curious your thoughts.
Mm. I love being a fallible, complicated, messy woman.
More power
I
to you.
love at this point having the freedom to make mistakes and be who I am and be honest in every direction. And characters must be those things to be compelling. There are no perfect role models because there are no perfect people. And having walked the straight line of respectability, it can feel compartmentalizing and uh reductive. Like I can also speak French. I also have a cat. I also, like we're a multiplicity. There's so many things about each one of us, and yet it's this one thing that people become obsessed with, for better or worse. And it reduces our humanity to this just 1%, this little one little element of who we are. So the work is to humanize our experiences and to tell stories in which the families, the friends, people feel real because they're flawed, because they make mistakes. They feel real because they feel like your mom, who you might have really serious issues with and long periods of not talking to, or you know what I mean? Like these are the things that make good stories, things that are universal. The more specific you are, the more universal it is.
Mm.
And I think for the trans protagonism, it's always a story about redemption and transformation. And oftentimes it's just a narrative device too, and it doesn't have anything to do with the lived experience of a trans person. It's just surprise, or it's or it's a punchline or something, or um, or the reveal. Um, but um, you have to wonder, you have to be curious. I mean, I think the other piece of it is that men love us. Men love us. They
Oh, they
wish it could be
do.
they wish it could be a forever secret that nobody would find out about. And I think a lot of it comes from men. Red state men consume more trans pornography. There's metrics that indicate that Republican men are more likely to be consumers of trans pornography. And in all of our experiences, we've met plenty of Republican men. So,
Girl. Yeah, that's a really hot topic right now.
yes, yeah,
Indeed. We've all met him.
hmm
Hmm.
yeah. But that's always been the closet case.
Yeah,
The politics have always had closet cases like that. J.
absolutely.
Edgar Hoover, Roy Cohn, any number of congressional members and senators. Wallace always told me, be careful of a closet queen, that they're the most dangerous.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
There's so much in that answer that I love. And I like I think the beginning is like a really good reminder and like permission to be human. Like for
hmm
me, but for everybody too, like I think it's easy to kind of feel like we have to be perfect when there are so many eyes looking at us. And
Yeah,
that's really beautiful to remind ourselves that that's what makes us human is when we are imperfect. And
yeah.
um, that can look so many different ways. And I love
hmm
I love seeing your characters because they are dynamic. They are, you know, flawed and beautiful and messy. And so thank you for giving us all permission to be all of
Yeah.
those things. And yet,
Anytime you need a
um,
reminder, you just holler, girl.
thank you.
Just
I'll
like let it all
be
hang out. Let out
give up
Susie
on that.
bad side. You've been too good.
I want to talk about your newest documentary film, Enigma, that just came out. In it, you delve into the complexities of identity and secrecy, which is, a perfect segue from the closet cases in our government to the trans people that try to choose to live stealth or not disclose their trans identity. So I'm curious how you navigate portraying individuals who have chosen to keep aspects of their identity private at the same time when we know that their stories are integral to trans history and we have all of this other evidence that points to the obvious truth.
Yeah. Well, girl, this is one and done. It was like this was an opportunity to tell a very compelling story about uh, not only the most famous trans person of the 20th century, but of legend who took a very traditional path of not disclosing her history. And I've been in the life for 20 years now, which is crazy to think about. And it was the standard position even 20 years ago,
Yeah.
um, anybody you noticed in public life who was trans was stealth. And you never made eye contact with another trans person
Hmm.
on the subway train or in a store. Um, and that did turn around in 2013, 2014, and that was incredible. That felt like a huge paradigm change to suddenly be in a shared space, a public space, to notice another trans person and to be acknowledged, to acknowledge them without feeling um, like you were outing them, and for them to acknowledge you without feeling outed. And I have known many non-disclosing women always. Oh wait, I mean, from as early as I can remember, for as long as I have known trans people, I've known girls who were non-disclosing, and it was fascinating because sometimes I'm thinking of one particular girl because we were close, and she never told me directly. I never asked her directly. We were in our 20s, but she said things to let me know. Right.
Hmm.
And I was like, girl, she
Wow,
she put
even
her
to you, she would
yeah,
not in private disclose.
yes. And Amanda's that way too.
Yeah.
Amanda's that way too.
Ugh.
Um, so Amanda has trans friends that she doesn't talk to about her history. And then with me, I think she welcomed me into her home as like a little sister or a daughter. And I felt very honored. And there was all kinds of in our time together that um, showed me her true beauty and love. Like she's a very um, free person and very loving and very lonely. I think all of those things are true.
Wow.
Wow. And we definitely came to an understanding about it all. And it includes everything that's come after. But
I
I just
love
told
to hear
them.
that. I was so curious watching
Okay.
about your relationship because it's
Yeah.
clear throughout like the interviews, you feel comfortable. You feel safe. Like it's not that you're like confrontational without like feeling permission to do so. And that reads to me.
Yeah.
So I love to hear some of that behind the scenes, and I'm glad to hear your relationship has even grown since then.
I mean, it's up and down. She's a
Sure.
Gemini, so she's got the twins. You never know if it's going to be the good twin or the bad twin. But yeah, meeting her, I just wondered. So I've known many of these women as young women. I've known them as older women, and oftentimes in my experience, knowing the elders, once they reach their 80s, they're ready to talk. They're ready to say, like, this is who I am. Because you remember these women, many of them were married to men who never knew and did not tell people who they were for decades. So in their 80s, they want to tell somebody, like, this is who I am. Like, don't I'm, make this worthwhile. Like, make me feel like this was for something and not just for my own survival. Like, I want to be a part of something bigger. And I wondered if Amanda would feel that way. And I'm a huge mega fan of Amanda's. I always have been. And so I was curious, like, how would she answer all these questions if it weren't coming from a pejorative lens? What would it be like if somebody was just like, I'm just like you, and you're like my hero, and you know, like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I still, and even I still know girls who are stealth,
Mhm.
that are younger than me, like that it still happens, at
Yeah.
all ages. And
Yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
something I understand for other people and it's something
Totally.
I'm glad I never chose for myself.
It rots your brain eventually.
Hmm.
That's what everybody says.
I
All the
believe
girls
it.
I know who've been stealth have said like it like rots your brain. Like your like parts of your brain no longer work because you're
Your whole life has to surround that. Like every decision you make, everything you say has to have that in mind. And I can't
yeah.
imagine that. I want to shift gears and talk about perceptions of us rather than of ourselves. In disclosure, shows how media has shaped perceptions of trans people for decades.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious how you see your own work challenging or reshaping those narratives and how cisgender people who are not trans view transgender people.
Oh my God. I mean, we have to play offense. We have to put our honest, authentic stories out there because we're swimming upstream and there's an avalanche of misrepresentation, mischaracterizing stories about who we are. And they're, somewhat omnipresent. They're kind of, yeah, they're being created, right? Like there's so many counter narratives about trans people being fraudulent, whiny, uh, needing unnecessary medical uh accommodations and um it's interesting because like so much of the rhetoric, some of the much of the anti-trans rhetoric uh is not based in knowing a trans person. It's the idea of trans. It's like the idea that they've created. But it is not connected to who we are and what we're doing. And so, yeah, I think storytelling is, um, in my view, the best way
I couldn't
to,
agree more.
yeah,
Like statistics, facts, science is important. It's real. You can't argue against it, even though people love to, but it's boring and it's not accessible to a lot of people. And I think our stories are far more powerful to heart and mind change
yeah,
because it's what humanizes us.
right. Absolutely.
And that's what you're doing. Like you are humanizing us for people. And I have sent your films to parents who have reached out to me, to, individuals who have asked me for more because it's important to see real life stories. Like I love narrative film, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just as important for people to see that we've always been here, we've been living our lives, and we all look different ways. We've lived a million different lives. We have celebrities, we have, random doctors, lawyers, whatever, like, you
Yeah.
know, we're everything and more, and
Yeah.
then some,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And there is something very helpful and utilitarian about real people telling their real stories. I mean, documentary is a very powerful message. Has the power to really reach. It's undeniable, you know. You can say like, oh, that's a Disneyfied, like that superhero, yada. Like that will always exist, that criticism of the thing that's a Hollywood invention. But you can't say the same thing about a generation of trans women who survived the streets of New York City
Yeah.
as runaway teens and thrown away teens. I mean, that's, yeah, that's the antidote to the idea that we're elitist, coastal.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, and I feel like so many of like the stories of history and like news and even like the narrative stories that we see are focused around these exceptional people that are often like celebrities or performers or whatever. And I love stories of average trans people who are flawed, who are villainous, not for the sake of being a villain, but who, are just human. I
yeah,
love that. And, I have friends who are in the stroll, the film you are referencing, and,
yeah,
I have myself have had to do survival work, um, so I think that it's beautiful to get to see, every kind of type of human, that exists, whether they be trans or not. And so
yeah.
thank you for including those stories.
Oh, thank you for watching, girl. And thank you for recommending them. And thank you for being my enabling audience.
Oh, I'm happy to enable you.
You enable me to continue making work.
Wow, thank you. I have two more questions.
Okay.
How has your personal experience as a trans artist influenced the stories that you choose to tell and the ways in which you tell them? And you have alluded to this, but I want to ask it specifically because I think there's something more in there.
I have a natural endpoint for every film that I've made or every series. There's something that I could claim, some piece of it that was familiar and allowed me to expand into a feeling of authorship. I always look for an element of serendipity and magic in a story, and it comes unexpectedly every time. And you never know which ones will spark.
Mm,
So I do feel led by my intuition, my ability to disappear into other people. And my mother was a journalist, a newspaper reporter. So to some extent, the legacy I've inherited is includes journalistic integrity and having uh, a well-studied and expansive mind.
The background of your rainbow library
But
is
this is, I mean, knowledge is the thing that nobody will ever take away from you. And young creators often ask, what can I do
mm,
to be a better director? And I encourage people to live their lives big, to absorb as much knowledge as possible, because that's what will make you great.
mm,
The life that you've lived, the people that you've met, the experiences that you've had, and the knowledge that's in your brain.
I love
I
that.
find that the best actors are incredibly intelligent, you know, and they're able to find those Scrabble words. You know what I mean? They're able to like come up with them. So, um, I think it's a, a deep investment in community for me. Um, I'm a part of many communities, but I've felt especially responsible to our community of trans and gender expansive people because our storytelling, our ecosystem of representation is so dismal and maligned that I think that's just a place that I can focus um, my work to have a bigger impact. And I'm in it for the justice. I'm in it for um, creating more equality. Equality is very important to me. That
Yeah.
we all are able to live um, in parity with each other, you know?
Mm. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, it's and that's why like I think you are successful is because you do it for the community. You do it for the love that you have and the desire for a more equitable justice, based world. And that's,
Yeah.
what's going to keep you going and, more power to you. And, I
You
love
keep it going.
Thank you.
It's true though. And when I was young, I didn't understand that.
Hmm,
But as I've gotten older, I realized, oh my God, it's the young people that um you become the life force.
hmm,
Because after 20 years, it can be exhausting and you can feel disenchanted and disillusioned and broken, completely broken. And sometimes you're just like, I, this is one of those moments where you're like, how the hell did we get here? But um, when you meet a young person and they're interested and they have a fresh perspective that you hadn't considered, you can't beat that shit with a stick, girl. It's the best thing in the world. It is. The future is so exciting. You're going to continue to meet younger people who are going to
yeah,
blow your mind.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
love
that's what I
that.
do for now.
Looking ahead, what untold stories or overlooked chapters of trans history are most compelling to you to explore next? And
Ooh. Right now is pretty interesting.
that's real.
Yeah, I would say right now is pretty fascinating. I read this, I was reading a psychoanalysis book, and it was like, you know, those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. But in psychoanalysis, they were saying those who remember their history too well are doomed to repeat it. And
Mm,
I was like, that gave me a whole 180. I was like, there's something to the present that I think sometimes we miss. And the quandary right now is where do you look? There's so much happening. What would the site be? Where is the place that you could document and witness everything um, that's happening? But the thing that I love about history is that it's infinitely discoverable, and you're constantly finding figures, ephemera, things that you never knew existed.
mm,
Um, so that's what I love about the archives. I love discovering stuff. And um, I'm in it for the connection too, the human to human connection, hearing the story, meeting a person. Um, everybody has a story, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at
Zachary,
the last human on Earth will be telling their story to a squirrel. It's something humans will tell stories forever.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Zachary, for this conversation. I feel inspired and encouraged and can't wait to see what's coming next from you.
Pleasure's all mine, darling. Thank you, Rose.